Yes, very excited to have this panel. I just want to say firstly, thank you for joining. We're super excited to have you all here. And I'm thrilled to be here at the very first Musiversal Music Summit. I'm honored to have Giel and Thiago with me on stage. Giel's an independent, yeah, please. Thank you very much for joining. Giel's an independent artist, songwriter, and entrepreneur based in Lisbon, Portugal. And Thiago is a label manager at Warner Music, also based here in Portugal. And he was previously in the A&R department at Universal as well. My name's David. I'm your host and your moderator. I'm the head of growth here at Musiversal. And so, Giel and Thiago, thank you again. We have a lot to talk about, though, so I don't want to take up too much time, so let's jump right into it. As you may have heard in the previous presentations, as musicians, we're kind of in a really confusing time right now, right? It's simultaneously never been harder to stand out with how much music is being created, but at the same time, it's never really been easier to reach thousands or if not millions of people at once, right? But I think artists today get this degree of what I call information overload, right? Which is where you're told you need to network, build an audience, get on playlists, run ads, create content, and it's all like this swarm of information. You don't know how to ingest it all, right? And so as an independent artist with limited time and limited money, we often ask ourselves, like, where do I start? What's the thing that's gonna really get things going for me, right? And so my first question is to you, Thiago. As a label manager, you often work with artists that have what I would call a degree of momentum, yep. Right? And they have kind of this accelerating career where their streams are going up, they're getting more followers, but that's not the reality for a huge amount of independent artists. They're getting their start. And so my question to you is, of the artists that you've worked with and seen, what's the start that they got? How'd they get to the point where they're under a label's attention, right? And that's my first question for you.
Yeah. Thank you very much for the question. Thank you for Musiversal and for thank you to Musiversal and to Lisbon Music Network for the invitation to be here, and thank you all for being here also. To start answering your question, I think it's important to go back to something that you said in your presentation earlier about having this massive amount of music delivered to streaming platforms every day. So basically, there's this report from Illuminate released last year in which they found that you have 120,000 tracks delivered every day to streaming platforms. So as you can see, it's this huge amount of information and content being uploaded to streaming platforms every day. And you really have to understand how you can set yourself apart and stand out among this ocean of information and content. And so something that I think that should be a good starting point for this conversation is to talk a little about personal branding, because I feel that if you really have to stand out and making yourself come across as this interesting artist who has something different to say and who has a unique creative vision and is proposing something different that should be interesting, you have to start on your personal branding. So Giel and me were talking earlier about authenticity and basically conveying your authentic self and showing this to the audience that you are trying to resonate with. And I think that's something that labels are really looking for, and usually when I start working with a new artist or when an artist catches our attention, it's always, I mean, there are lots of aspects that are obviously relevant to our decision and to our interest in signing that artist, but it always starts with talent and basically seeing an artist doing something different and really working on their branding in a very interesting level. So,
yeah. I agree. I think personal brand is super interesting, and it's one of those things that you don't really know what your personal brand's going to be, right? Yeah. And so, Giel, Thiago's obviously more on the label side, works with a ton of different artists, but you've walked the walk, and you're walking it every single day. And so, I'm really curious to hear from your perspective, how do you think about that stuff every day? How do you manage it all?
It's a great question. Also, I'd like to thank Musiversal. Thank you, David, for this conversation. It's a conversation that we need to have more, and I think as an independent artist, this still goes back to the absolute answer of knowing yourself. As an independent artist, you must know yourself more than an artist that's actually signed by a label. Why? Because if you don't know yourself, they will create someone that works for the industry that you're trying to tap into. So authenticity is such a strong factor in the road to even being able to manage as an independent artist. It means that you're daily perfecting your brand. You are the brand, the artist. I am the brand. People come to listen, to hear, to see what I have learned about myself through my music I express. And that is so important when it comes to an independent walk. How you manage that? Take time to know yourself. I think we're in this era where everyone is healing. Everyone is doing the work that they can do to whatever level they are able to do it. I think this is the groundwork. And as you develop yourself, know what you stand for, what you don't stand for, the things that you want to see happen in your life, be persistent about it, be consistent. So this authenticity, once you know yourself, in that management, I understand that I need to be consistent, as in I consistently show up as me on every stage. I'm not pretending to be anyone else. I'm not trying to be like someone who maybe in the crowd may say, oh, she sounds like this person. All of that is wonderful because as humans, we do like to try to put things in boxes. We try to make it make sense for us to our own understanding. But the power is literally in your authenticity. That's how you manage. Continue to know yourself and show up as yourself every single time.
Two great answers, and couldn't agree more. And I think I was telling you guys outside, I've been doing these marketing sessions, advice sessions with the Musiversal subscriber base for 5 months now. And they always say, I don't know what my brand is, and I don't know how to arrive at that. And I always tell them, you don't really have one yet. Yeah. And that's okay.
You can create it for yourself.
You can create it for yourself by finding what pieces of your authentic self is what resonates with your audience. Yes. It's not a prescription. It's not, these are the exact things that my audience is going to like, but it's instead, let's test it out. Let's see if they like this part of my lifestyle. Let's see if they like this part of my musical taste. Let's see if they like this other thing. And we kind of make content and put it out there and put ourselves out to the world and who we are as humans. And then we kind of learn what's the thing that the audience responds to. And then we can do more of that if we feel that that's authentic to us. Or we can learn, maybe there's a different way that's more authentic to me that I can still speak to this, right? And so I think it's a really important distinction. And I talk about this with companies too. If like you're an early stage company, you don't have a brand. No one knows who you are. So it's like, take some shots, put things out there. Learn who you are by doing that and learn what people want to see and what they like about you. And that's a really cool exercise. And as it relates to music, I think it's and artistry, it's super important to feel that comfortability. But it all goes back to what you're saying, which is be yourself, be authentic, and learn the pieces of yourself that people really, really enjoy and double down on it, right? Yeah.
Also, there's something that Giel was saying that's really relevant, and I would really like you to take this information from this conversation and really get it to the top of your mind, because it's really, really super important. And Giel was saying how it's important to really get to know yourself as an artist, even before all the processes of trying to get a record agreement with a label or starting to work with other artists or collaborating with other musicians. It's really important to basically define for yourself a clear artistic vision, and to do that before you even reach a later stage of your career. Because if you start by doing that, when you are actually at the point of working with a label, if you decide you want to work with one, that shouldn't be the end game, as we were saying, and it's not something that has to happen for you to have success in your musical career. There are many ways of being in the music industry, such as in any creative industry or any industry really. So there are lots of valid paths that you could walk. And I think that when you approach a label already knowing what's your artistic vision, the role of a label shouldn't be to create this character, as Giel was rightly saying, but to amplify what's your artistic vision and to take it one step further. So I don't see my job, my role as a label manager, I never see it as a way of trying to dictate what an artist should do or what's the message an artist should convey in their music or how they should present themselves. What I really want to understand, and the more clearer it is in your head, the better the job. The easier it will be for a label manager or any person in the label really to do. We only have to amplify what you already have inside you, and with communication and marketing skills and giving you the best strategies that are available at the moment, making it
like being the machine behind what you already have.
Yeah.
I just want to, I know you need to move on, but I just want to make a point about tagging that. As an independent artist of any kind, or even independent musician, it doesn't matter if you are marketing yourself as someone who is making money from your talent, gifts, or things of this nature. The machine, it should only be a complement to what you're already able to produce for yourself.
Absolutely.
This is the biggest problem with, I shouldn't say it that way, I don't want to sound attacking, but it is a challenge for the indie mindset to think that they have arrived when they get a signed contract. That challenge only makes you more accountable to other people other than yourself. And if you're not able to be accountable to yourself and prove that you can do it for yourself, then someone can come along and provide the machine behind you, but now you are yoked to something that you were forced to produce if it wasn't your authentic self. It is trauma waiting to happen.
And it's important to have this ability of building a solid foundation and demonstrating your potential by yourself. As Giel was saying, I think that when you sign with a label, and before doing that, you already know that you can benefit from what the label is offering you, but you are already in a position to benefit from that. Instead of building everything from scratch, you'll have a completely different perspective about your career, and things will probably go way smoother.
I agree.
Yeah, and I guess the follow-up question that I have from it is, how do you know if you're in that position where, you know, you've built something for yourself and all of a sudden you're under that microscope a little bit by record labels? How do you know if it's the right time? How do you know what is the scenario where it's right for me to sign to a label, and what's the scenario where I need to stay independent and build this machine on my own and take it as far as I can on my own? And I guess I'm going to go to you first, because you've had this scenario happen to you. I think you told me 7 times?
7 times, yes.
Wow.
Actually, I've been offered 7 different contracts before in the lifespan of my music history. And they have been everything from production contracts to actual artist contracts, to team writing and writing contracts, the full spectrum. And I was assuming, yes, finally I've made it, you know, it sounded so cool. But the knowledge I gained from not having signed those contracts, for whatever reason, there were challenges that happened within the label itself, where the contract was either unfortunately pulled, null and void. We talked about this also, how there is a heavy turnover in the actual music industry, where someone who is the president of the company today may not be the president within 2-3 years. And so if the A&Rs that came underneath them and they're gone, the rosters that they were trying to sign, those people usually get dropped too. So understanding that this was not the actual place to start my quote unquote career, I was forced into the independent life. So I didn't even know. All the things I've learned over these years have been from trial and error, simply because I wasn't able to follow through on the contracts for a great reason, because now I've been in the industry for over 20 years and music sustains my life, you know? So, and I'm grateful. My level of success is according to my level of success, right? And I think to answer your question would be, you know when it's right to do it, when it makes sense for you and you're able to capitalize off of that partnership with a label, as opposed to thinking that you need the label to make you big or to help you make money or to get you to the, you know, the inside the homes of people across the world. All of that can come. If you, the phrase, build it, they will come. I'm a living witness to see that, because the truth is, no matter what, if you're focused on your gift and your talent, people will come not looking for you. That's just a given. If they haven't started looking for you yet, it's simply because you're still perfecting what you're building, and it will come. You know, it will come.
I have a, if you build it, they will come is from one of my favorite movies, Field of Dreams. Yeah. And I'm really curious to hear Thiago's perspective on genre selection and the type of music that I'm making. The reason I ask this is because as producers, songwriters, you know, they write stuff that's trending at the time. But then there's the artists, the Frank Oceans of the world, the Tyler, the Creators of the world, where it does not matter what the current it doesn't matter what the current sound is, they make their sound. And I always frame it as, there's someone out there for you, no matter what. No matter what type of music you make, someone will like it. We just have to get in front of them. And so how do you as a label manager work with artists to, how do you find the balance between let's capitalize on the thing that works for everybody, or let's stay you doing what you do best in your lane? How do you kind of find that balance in terms of the actual music being created?
Yeah, it's obviously a challenge, because working in a and Giel is laughing, because working in a major label, of course, that you have to make sure that you are respecting the artistic integrity at the maximum level you can do it, while also making sure that the music that the artist is making is profitable. So trying to reach these agreements between what are the artistic expectations and what's the artistic vision, as we were discussing earlier, and what actually might work for a more mainstream market is obviously a challenge. And I really don't have like this specific answer that would obviously solve the issue. It's an ongoing negotiation that's basically a big part of my daily job. But I think that obviously I work with artists that are creating many different genres, from pop to rock to more alternative genres. And basically the thing is also about handling expectations and understanding what's the target that you are working for. Obviously, if you are trying to break it into a pop mainstream market where you want to have millions of fans and selling out arenas and everything, you know, you'll have to make certain concessions to what you are expressing in a song and how you do it. But if you are more interested in being like 100%, and that's obviously a respectable and good things of doing stuff, but it's not the only thing. And if you decide to be in a completely different headspace where you are just trying to basically come across as this very authentic person who's making this very specific genre and being super original and creative about things and proposing something very different, there will also be a target for that. There will also be an audience for that. But obviously, you'll be more focused on a niche, and you know that probably financially, for a record label, things will be a bit more challenging. But it's also a very interesting way of doing things. You just have to be with the right expectations and from the start know where you knowing where you want that project to go and being very on board with the artists about what are the intentions.
It's no secret that when a record label's looking at somebody, they've clearly made something happen for themselves. And so I'm really curious to hear, Giel, like, what was the thing, or maybe a couple of things, that prompted those labels to get in touch with you? Was it one song? Was it a consistent body of work? I'm really curious to just understand kind of what you felt was the thing that made you so appealing and attractive to them.
That's a great question. So in retrospect, thinking about it now, because this was a time ago, I think there was a conglomerate of things that I was doing that I just kept showing up. Before we knew what an algorithm was, I was showing that I was in everybody's algorithm. Before it was like a said known thing, people were like, "Yeah, did you see that girl Giel?" Like, oh, that's how I was in the algorithm. And I think that, I was in the vocal algorithm, let's say that. I was gonna say, in regards to this situation, I leveraged my connection with my audience, right? So yes, I have a niche when it comes to songwriting. I can write in several different styles. So that really helped me get in the door with various types of artists, musicians. So when you're around different types of people and your name continues to come up in these circles, that's how I believe it started. Now, when it came to why they wanted to sign me, it was because although I was in the algorithm, I delivered. So I made sure that it didn't matter what stage I was on. If I was singing for the preschool, because schools would hiring me too. Like they would be like, "Today, guys, we're gonna have Giel. She's a singer." Ah. And I would be there with those 3- and 4-year-olds with my guitar. We was having the best time ever. They were singing my song. And I had taught them the lyrics, and I have also done that with grown adults in big concerts. So from the smallest stage up into the stages where I have been internationally, where I've sang for 60, 100,000 people. This is amazing that there was never a differentiation in my performance. And I think that those two things were it.
Yeah. You said something really important, and it relates to consistency. Yeah. You always showed up. And Thiago, I'm sure.
Yeah, I was going to talk about it, and basically saying that Giel said this very important thing. Basically, half of the job and half of the success is showing up. Obviously, all of these things that Giel was doing were obviously what attracted a label's attention. There are several factors that are obviously super relevant when we are understanding what makes an artist interesting, appealing to propose a deal to work with them. And talent and having a strong personal brand and being original and proposing something different is obviously the start, as I was saying earlier. And when you actually start putting an effort on things and really working and standing out, as Giel was obviously doing, things start to come together, and it's usually just a matter of time until you get noticed, and we see if it makes sense to add you to our roster. So when we start seeing that you have this dedicated and engaged fan base that is showing a strong support for you on your social media and across all platforms, when we start seeing consistent and interesting streaming numbers on platforms, when we usually have and in Portugal this is especially important because a big part of the music industry is very centered on live performance. And so it's really important for us, and I'm speaking as a member of the music industry. It's important to get to know an artist performing live before signing with them. So that's when you actually can see how they are on stage. Are they able to really maintain this interesting and meaningful relation with their audience? Are they someone who will actually be able to go on tour and create this special connection with people? That's something we are really looking for.
It's such a good point, because I think in the TikTok era,
Yeah.
you have these songs that go insanely viral, and now all of a sudden an artist has had 0 streams, maybe 1,000 streams, and all of a sudden they have 1 million, and then they have 10 million, and then they have 50 million. And now they have an audience on Instagram, 500,000 people deep, and all of them are saying, when are you going to play live? When are you going to play live?
And the TikTok effect, as you were saying, sorry, is also changing the landscape of live performance and live music.
They're not ready for it.
Yeah, but it's something it's a phenomenon, and it's very interesting to see it happen in front of your eyes. Like I can think of a very specific and recent example. Like 2 weeks or 3 weeks ago, we had Nós Alive here in Portugal, a music festival, and one artist from Warner was performing, Kenya Grace. You probably know Kenya Grace from TikTok. She has the hit song Strangers that millions of people have posted and followed the trend, and basically she became these huge TikTok hits, producing from her bedroom, and she exploded and became this superstar. And I was at Kenny's show in Nós Alive, and it was so interesting to see, because even the way the audience relates to you is completely different. Like, she already has an album, so she was playing other songs from her album, obviously. People were enjoying the concert. It was a nice show. She's a good performer. But then it was on Strangers, and on the viral part of Strangers, not just the whole song, that people went absolutely crazy, and that was like the highest point of the concert. And obviously there have always been songs that are way more that have these like really meaningful impact on people, and those are usually the singles and the songs that people really relate to. But TikTok is making this situation even more intense. So it's really interesting to see that.
You went the total opposite way that I thought you were going to go with it. And the reason for that is, when you're on TikTok and you have this massive audience that now follows you, and you get a label to sign you based off your TikTok, and they want you to go to Rolling Loud, or they want you to go to Nós Alive. And I've played one show one time in my whole life, and now I have to step on stage in front of 50,000 people or 30,000 people. I'm intimidated. Like, I'm shaking if that's me, right? And so a lot of times you see these artists, and I think it's, you know, these little behind the scenes of, oh, they were terrible live. It doesn't surprise me that happens.
No,
I mean,
it's a challenge,
getting
of course.
thrown
And
into the
I was talking about an example where I was just thinking about this difference in the way that people interact with a live show and with the artist. But it's actually a case in which things turn out good, but there are lots of other artists, which I shouldn't name, that are TikTok viral sensations or internet sensations, and then you see them live, and clearly they are starting from a different circuit than artists were starting some years ago. Like, nowadays they are starting on the internet. They are not starting with GarageBand. They are not starting like performing live for the first time and hanging out with friends and trying to understand what's working, what's not. Like, everything is going on online or in bedrooms, producing in front of your computer, and it totally changes the way you think about stepping on a stage.
Agreed, and it's consistency.
Sorry, I was going to say, I think this is what we were talking about earlier. Like, we were expressing how there is a new breed of artists that are coming out because of what has happened through COVID and the forcing of our having to be on the inwards of ourselves and only expressing our creativity in front of a camera. So this is a plus. As an indie artist, it's great. If you relate well on camera, it's beautiful. It shows that you have presence that, you know, sometimes have to be taught. And this is something I'm sure Thiago can attest to when it comes to your team. If you're being signed to a label, you typically do get signed, you know, your glam team, even down to your artist development team. There are things that you get as a package deal with that industry. But with this new breed of artists or a new breed of entertainers, maybe we can say that too, because they have a large platform when it gets viral. They are having to learn a different way to relate to the audience, to connect to the audience when it comes to real-time touching people. And I don't know, it leaves room for those who are teachers. It leaves rooms for more opportunities for artist development if you can connect to these types of artists, or it just means that here's another opportunity for us to grow and change in the industry in a way that we just can't foresee. We have to just go with the flow.
Yeah, and to echo on it, I think consistency of just doing these things over and over and over again, playing live over and over and over again, is what's going to make you better at it ultimately. Right. And so there are a lot of, I'm kind of going to go a different direction now, because there's a lot of tools out there to help you stay consistent. And I wouldn't be the head of marketing at Musiversal if I didn't say that Musiversal is one of them. Yes. But there's, Giel, plenty of tools that I'm sure that you've used over time that have helped you streamline your workflow, helped you post on socials. Yeah. I'm really curious to hear, what are the things that you've used that are deeply actionable suggestions for artists to stay consistent?
Well, it depends on where you're trying to stay consistent, right? Because if it's social media, then you know there are several platforms, some that combine, of course, Musiversal, if you need. Shameless plug, shameless plug. But when it comes to, as an indie artist, if you have already completed your body of work, if you already have a project, the next step obviously is going to be, how do I get it in the hands of people? And this is where you use every aspect of it. I'm a big fan of email marketing. I think email marketing is still, I don't care what.
Deeply underrated.
Deeply underrated. And I feel like the second you have captured someone's, let's just say, I have email accounts or addresses from my entire career. And I mentioned this on a previous panel, how when I have something new coming out, I send out an email. And when I send out an email, I have people who have been following me for 15 years, and I do mean 15 years, who are saying, oh my goodness, Giel, we're so glad that you're back doing music. Hey, I just want to support you. They don't even live in Lisbon, okay? We're talking about somebody from another part of the world who has still been following my career, who is optioning to either support me financially, support me just by sharing my music, posting it. This leverage both the tools and the people, right? So email marketing is so slept on. I also would say there's a way to now tap into other areas of internet, Web 2, Web 3. You have platforms there where you can host actual full-on concerts in a decentralized atmosphere and create the world you're trying to do. You can do a world tour online, you know? These tools there's I think the platform called Even. There's, if you need help with, of course, like Hootsuite, things like that. If you want to set up social media, HubSpot, there is. Trying to think of the ones that I have used. I don't have a team at this time. I literally will spend a day, okay, today is email marketing. I'm sending out all my emails. Tomorrow I am working on, okay, I'm going to contact all of these playlists. This is where my music is going to go. Another day I may spend diving into Web3 and trying to learn how I can set up my own shop in there. Gosh, there was another one. I made a list of us because this was as important for you to know what tools to use.
While you pull it up, we might, Thiago, what's the label use? How do they manage the artists and all of that?
Like, there are many different tools that we use during all stages of a release process. Giel was saying some very interesting things, and I can maybe talk about some of that too, and introduce you to some platforms which basically most of you already know, like Spotify for artists and Apple Music for artists. But it's really important, and I just wanted to say this first, don't underestimate the importance of building your database and constantly feeding it over the years, because as Giel was just exemplifying, starting with all of those direct contacts and building on these connections over the years will make you, will help you staying consistent and basically helping you on the long run to just be there instead of going away after
They'll stay with
just
you.
one
They really
single.
will. If you're being authentic and you're being consistent, the people who fell in love with your music are willing to grow with you. And yes, they'll stay on your mailing list forever.
Yeah, and there are many things you can use when you are developing a strategy, as I was saying. Starting with a pre-release strategy, you have all these insights and processes you should follow if you are using platforms, as I was saying, like Spotify for Artists or Apple Music for Artists. Spotify has actually just implemented 2 weeks ago, I think, these pre-release checklists in which before releasing a song, you can see if you are following all the steps they would basically suggest you should do to make sure that you are optimizing your release at the best possible way. So pitching your songs to playlist curators, making sure that your platforms are fully updated with an interesting bio, with updated profile pictures, linking to your social media and making sure that you are discoverable across all platforms. Because something that I frequently see with independent artists, it's that you have this huge amount of functionalities in platforms and things that you can use to make you go farther and to make sure that you are working with the algorithm and trying to potentiate your reach. And some of those tools aren't used either out of knowledge or because you think it's something extra to add to your strategy and you want to focus on music. But doing all of these steps and ensuring that you are getting the most out of the platforms is one of the best things you can actually do. So make use of tools like pre-save on Spotify. It signals to the platform when people are actually saving your songs to playlists and adding them to their collections that you have a high engagement within the platform, and so basically you'll start getting more attention. Make use of pre-ad on Apple Music. On platforms like YouTube, you don't have exactly this functionality, but you have the option of setting up a premiere even before the video goes live. So basically, YouTube will generate this landing page where people can see the thumbnail of your music video or a visualizer, and people are able to basically set up a notification for when your video goes live, and you have the opportunity of, during the premiere of the video, being live in the chat with people watching it, having this like real-time conversation, and those are all things that really make the difference in the first days of a release.
Also, I would like to add, since it's more, you're speaking more so of the release of the project too, depending as an independent artist, whatever platform you use, so you have places like TuneCore, CD Baby, these independent outlets that you can use.
DistroKid.
Yeah, especially I have a lot of projects on DistroKid. Yeah. Utilize their tools as well, because they also help you to set up, different types of premieres, and even already sending out updates for you. A platform that I used a lot in my early days. I don't use it so much, but it's still working for me. Reverb Nation. The other day, I think I just happenstanced on Reverb Nation, and I was like, "Oh shoot, I forgot I even have an account with them." And it just turned out that not only were they funneling all my shows, like every recent show, all my shows from Lisbon, they're posting it. So once you get into the flow of using these ones, it'll send out to every platform, and it just helps your reach overall as an indie.
We were talking about what you should do like before the release of a single, of a project, of an album, but there are also these very actionable things that you can do after releasing a project. We were talking about the importance of building a good database, and it's also important to look at data and analytics. You have so many different things that you can analyze, that you can measure to understand what's working for your audience, where are they based, what's the target that you are actually connecting with. And sometimes it's not the target that you initially thought you were going to connect with. So it's interesting to understand where your music goes and when it basically has a life of itself instead of what you were planning initially.
In my past role in the A&R side of things, I saw an artist that was US based. They released a song, kind of flopped in the US, but randomly in, I think it was South Korea, just took off. And so they had now this massive following from South Korea, and they spoke to it and did a lot of content relating to it. They visited and they did a show there, and it was awesome, and it was great content, everything. So that's really interesting to say, like, it might not be the audience that you expected, but that's just still okay and great.
And it goes back to what you were saying initially, I think, the fact that we are living in a very exciting, although very challenging period of this industry, because these global democratization and free access to these type of tools, and the internet has basically revolutionized everything, as you know, and it's something that I totally support. Has also made basically the creation of these phenomenons, as you were just saying. So it's really interesting to see that.
Okay, so we've gotten into data and analytics, we've talked about HubSpot, we've talked about websites, email marketing, we're talking about the tech stack of being an artist, right? It would not be a music industry panel in 2024 if I did not ask the question that I'm going to say, I'm going to ask it right now. What do you think about artificial intelligence in the industry now? And maybe where it's going?
Yeah, I think, of course, this is the question that was going to arise, and probably one of the most controversial and difficult ones to answer. AI can be an incredibly useful thing, both for artists and for industry professionals. We use it, artists use it, there are many ways of using it, but the thing is doing it in an ethical way, ensuring that the role of an artist continues to be respected, musical and artistic integrity is always respected, the questions regarding copyright, property, intellectual ownership, that's where basically the main discussion is at the moment, and the main problems that are arising. Recently, not just Warner Music, but also Universal and Sony started filing this very complex process about some platforms that were using. But basically, they were using AI to emulate the voices of certain artists, and that's when it becomes a problem. And instead of using AI to help you generate ideas or backing you up on decisions by identifying trends and predicting these patterns, when it starts basically stealing people and being a dangerous threat to originality and to intellectual property, as we were saying, that's when it gets complicated. So it's a challenge.
Yeah, it's really it's a fine line that we're walking, and I guess this goes back to the new breed of artists also that are emerging, because there are a group of musicians that are really achieving amazing fame with the help of AI, and that's not a problem because the initial idea, if you're manipulating the idea, then it can still be part you, right? But when it comes to us using AI for the total, and then infringing upon other the rights of a person or their person or personality or their voice or things, I think we're in deep trouble with that. We'll have to work that out as we go, as we know. But on the other side of it, AI is a very helpful tool, and I use AI for a lot of different things, especially in songwriting sessions. If I'm starting to feel a little bit of writer's block, needing help with maybe depending on my rhyme format. If in my rhyme format I'm running out of rhymes, or I need a little help with that. Oh yes, I didn't think about tree and free. These things are helpful, even helping to organize my ideas, or maybe strategize how I want a song or my album to be. These tools come handy. But when it comes to infringing on the rights and creativity of others, I think that's where we have challenges.
If you want to see, sorry. No, I was just going to say that if you want to see like these very beautiful and moving statements about what are actually the problems that are arising with the use of AI and how it is, how it can be an amazing thing, but how it's also threatening artists. Yeah, I recommend you watching the audience that Twigs was doing before the Senate with Robert Kinkle by Warner Music Group at her site, in which she is talking about the experience of being an artist and how she feels that the need to protect her art. It's an amazing statement, so look it up. It's pretty self-explanatory, and it's the best possible way of talking about all of the things we were just talking about.
Very cool. I haven't seen it. I'll have to watch. But what you're saying, Giel, is that you use the thesaurus.com much less than you used to?
I don't think I ever used thesaurus.
Well, for rhymes, I was
maybe for synonyms. This is true.
There you go.
Yes, I use it a lot less. There are way better AI tools to use for that.
Awesome. And I'm really curious from the production side of things. Obviously, the rights and all the ethical questions are certainly super important. And on the production side, though, AI is really interesting because it has this aggregate of what good sounds like, right? And so it's weird, though, because when you make something with AI, you're like, it doesn't sound great. It sounds good, but you're kind of confused about how it's arrived at that. So I'm really curious to hear your take on specifically using AI in music production and the crafting of your sound, and I guess the benefits and the drawbacks of doing so.
I think, as you were just saying, it's basically a safe option in the sense that you know that when you are using it to produce music, it's always going to sound good because it's based on what actually works and what doesn't, and it will know how to take an informed and good decision about what should be a nice thing to add to this song, or what should go in this part, or what would be a nice chorus and everything. But it also kills the possibility of spontaneity. And it also goes back to this Twigs statement that I was thinking about. Basically, it has no soul. So even if it sounds good, as you were saying, it's probably never going to sound great because it's lacking emotion. It's lacking history. It's lacking all your references and your emotional landscape and life so far. And that's not something that you can replicate with AI. You will never have the same originality and the lived experience that an artist or a musician can bring to a song, or a producer can bring to a song. Because your lived experience, your authenticity, to go back to what we were saying, is something that informs not only your songwriting, your lyrics, your sound, but also the way you work inside a studio. What are your artistic decisions? Why are you doing this in a certain way instead of doing it that way? That's all part of your personal and artistic biography, really, and you can't do that with an AI.
I like to think about it as, yes, please. I agree. I like to think about it as, when we talk about that authenticity, it's your personal fingerprint on the song, on the music, you know what I mean? So it's like, there's a difference between using AI to get you started. Like, let's say you are a singer, but you don't play any instruments. You don't have an account just yet with Musiversal, but you are saving your coins to get it because at the current time, you just are not able to do it. AI, they have, different functionalities where they can actually help you start out the song. You even have text to speech description, like how we do in ChatGPT, and we discuss by describing what we want to have happen in the song. I think I had it. Yeah, Udio. Udio is one of those where you can literally just like type in what you want the song to feel like.
Sorry, Giel, and Udio, it's one of the platforms that's being processed by Warner and
there
Universal and Sony, as I was saying.
Okay, well, there we go. There, it
is.
So this is when using AI is good. And you add your personal fingerprint to it. So you're creating from scratch. You say, okay, well, I want the song to feel this way. I want it to have some minor chords. If you're versed enough to understand how to explain what you want to hear, AI is an excellent way to get started. It's when you add the additional individualized fingerprint on that sound. Then now, it's not just, oh, this sounded good. You've added the thing that will connect to the human experience listening to your music. So it's just like, it's very similar to going into, if you're a musician and you might know FL, you might know Logic, these platforms where you can make music on, even Pro Tools. You can download files, loops, to create a music. It's very similar. It's instead of doing the manual work, you just have a computer that has done the work for you, gathered those loops together. But it's important to remember, at least at this stage in the game, until we work out the ins and outs, the fingerprint is what will make it have come to life. It would bring its soul to the song.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Well, I've asked you guys a ton of questions, and you've answered them spectacularly, and so I thank you for that. But I would say that there are probably 90, 100 people in the room that have some too. And so I'm very curious. I'm going to open it up at this time and say, are there any questions from the audience? And no question is dumb. No question is too difficult. Very curious to hear what our audience here thinks and has questions for Thiago or Giel. Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead. I might actually walk around and give you the mic. This is kind of fun for me.
Cool, thanks. Hi, Giel. Loving you and your talking, your authenticity, all of that.
Thank you so much.
I was hearing how you're saying that you are privileged and lucky and love it, that you can make a living out of this. And this is the kind of thing that most musicians just think is no longer possible. What does that look like, though? Because I kind of stopped doing music around about 10 years ago, got into startups instead, but kind of had that time. And when I was making a living out of that, it looked like a whole bunch of gigging plus some teaching, and I was just about able to scrape a living. Yeah. What does it look like today?
It still looks like that.
Okay.
So let's not negate those. But now we're in a playing field where multiple streams of income is the name of the game. Right. So you're gigging. Yes. Well, let me make me. Yes, I'm gigging. Yes, I'm touring. Yes, I'm writing. I'm writing for myself and for other people. I also write for Sync in commercial film, TV, and then I'm also teaching. Oh, the 6, okay.
Oh, wow.
Teaching. And then there are still residuals I receive on my previous albums that are already out. And the more I gig, the more that picks up, because those albums that I put out in 2012 and 2015 and the singles in between, new fans, new lovers of what I do are recognizing and saying, hey, and then I'm like, oh, I got to check in okay, all right, thank you, BMI. So that's what that looks like at the current.
Can I drop in a quick follow-up? This is not for me, by the way.
Sure.
It's kind of thinking also the people who are watching. If you're like 22 today and you want to just start out, what's the tip of your spear looking like? Like, where do you start to make money? If you had to start all over.
Wow. Okay. That is a really good question, actually. And it's a scary question to think because, to be honest, I feel a little bit like I've had to develop these skills over time, and I've had a lot of time to develop them and put things in place already that is making money for me still today. I think this is where the new breed of the artists may be winning over in this thought process, because social media has never been what it has ever been as it is today. And so I think I would definitely start there. The challenge would be dependent on what type of artist they're trying to be. You know, if they are one that's just kind of like a, hey, I'm an entertaining artist or I'm a performing artist, that might determine what platforms I use. But I forgot that's also another stream of income. YouTube and social media also pays me. So I would definitely start there.
Probably just start on social media and try to monetize.
Yeah, I think I would try to
there.
do. Yeah.
Nice.
And of course, leverage in shows, because for me, the type of artist that I am, I connect that way. And that's part of the thing that allows me to build or keep growing my audience.
And that circles back to that authenticity and finding
Yes,
your
ma'am.
niche. Amazing. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Yeah, let me just say that Giel's answer is actually brilliant, because it shows you how you get to be an entrepreneur in music and how you actually get to make a living out of it. Because, as you know, physical sales are less and less important. It's very difficult to make a living from streaming. So diversifying your revenue sources and incomes is the way of doing it. And Giel has explained it perfectly.
Thank you.
So,
I forgot
just a
to add, I would also leverage any type of show. I would create my own shows. I would not wait for opportunities. As an independent artist, I have never waited for an opportunity. Me coming to Lisbon is a prime example of how instinctually I didn't even realize I had kicked in to drive what I have learned over the years, which is it doesn't matter where you put me on this earth. Because I know who I am and what I can do, I can create something and it will make and bring me wealth.
Yeah. Thank you all for your inputs. My question would be related to the theme of the panel, and maybe a bit more targeted to Thiago. So we are talking about independent artists. We've been talking a lot about the power of social media, how Musiversal, for example, is allowing also to make music production more accessible. Everyone now can produce music in their own rooms, can also hire very talented musicians to help them. And with social media, they can expose it to the world. So, Thiago, how do you see now the role of a big label? Because back in the days, producing music was super expensive. You could get, that was a big part of your value prop, essentially. And how do you see, when, for an independent artist that's getting some traction, when does it make sense to try or to join a label, and when doesn't it make sense?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. For me, speaking from a personal experience, I don't think there's a specific moment where you can say it would be the right or the wrong moment to sign an artist, speaking from a label perspective. I've worked with artists, independent artists, at the time, before joining a label, that were just starting, and we were basically making the first steps with them. And we've also signed independent artists that have been in the game for several years, that were already very well established in their genre. And then at some point on their career, they felt it was the right step, or it was what they needed at the moment to join a label, because that's what made sense for the stage they were at. As we were saying earlier, I think that what's really important is that before you do it, you have actually define what's your artistic vision before joining a label, and proving your potential by yourself. So you are not building all of it from scratch with a label, but you already have at least an idea of what you want to express, and you know you are able to do it, instead of being too reliable on a label. Because the work of a record label, as I see it, and as I like to do it on my job, and that's the way I see it professionally, is amplifying what an artist has to say and taking it farther with basically all our knowledge regarding marketing and communication and the best strategies that are available at the moment, and making sure that you are reaching your full potential, and we are amplifying it and making sure that you are growing into the best artistic version of yourself. I think there are many reasons why you should join a label if that's what makes sense for you. There are also lots of reasons why you shouldn't if it doesn't make sense for your project, and maybe we can talk about that in a second. Obviously, when you are working with a label, you know that you are being way more able to focus on the artistic side of your project because you have this team working with you and ensuring that the business and administrative and bureaucratic side of things are basically our job while you are able to focus on your music. You also get this access to a well-established web of relations with local radios, with media outlets, with other artists. So basically, exposure and connections and other collaborations are all things that will probably be way easier and interesting at that moment. But Giel and I were talking about this earlier, and it also connects to your question. I think that signing with a label and having this on the back of your mind shouldn't be seen as the end goal of making music, because it may very well happen that along the process you understand that the way you are looking at your career and the way you want to be in music doesn't actually require a label, or it may not be something that is even desirable for a lot of reasons, for creative reasons, for financial reasons too, because you want to retain the ownership of your masters and to take a larger part of the revenue that you are making, because you want to actually be independent in your decisions instead of relying on a team. So I think that at the end of the day, you just have to understand how do you see your career unfolding, weighing in the benefits of actually joining a label and understanding if that's the right move for you.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Can I just ask a very quick question? But it's going to be also to Thiago. Just curiosity. You mentioned that post-release you also you can look a lot of analytics. That do you have one or two metrics that you look at when trying to post-release?
Yeah, if you are looking at a platform such as Spotify for Artists, as I was saying, and I'm focusing on Spotify because, especially in Portugal, but also in many other countries, it's the main streaming platform, and basically in which artists are deriving data and analytics. So it's very interesting to see the type of playlists that your song is being placed in. It's very interesting to see what's the target that you are actually reaching. How are people reaching your music? Is it through algorithmical playlists? Are they discovering it on your profile? It's very interesting to see where are people coming from? How are they discovering your music? Because it signals you how and where you should focus all your attention on. So those are some of them. Yeah.
Thank you.
Can I just say that what he just said is actually more important for the indie artist. I'm sure it's great that this helps you understand or identify who's working with you, but as an indie artist, you should be able to understand and read your own analytics. And this is how I have been able to do shows in other countries because of this understanding that, oh wow, somebody...
You see where people are actually listening,
and where it's actually growing, and how one song of yours may be very popular in one area of the world, and the rest of your music maybe not so much, but that's okay. As an indie artist, you would have the choice to still utilize that as an opportunity to have a show. And in the case of where if you were signed, they may not look at that as enough support for you. They may say, okay, well, although there is a large amount of people there, this is only one song. Maybe we need to try to start to do more songs like that. Now we get into changing or veering what you are as, or what you present to your audience. So if you're willing to share that instruction, because it would be instruction, because you would be under contract. If you're willing to share that and be guided in that way, then it's a great opportunity to have that kind of team behind you recognizing that. But as an indie artist, you get to make that decision and really get connected with those people that are loving you from wherever in the world they are.
Amazing answer, yeah. Any other questions out there? Hands up if so. I see one. Thank you. Bring you the mic.
Hello. My name is Milai. I know Giel for a little bit. She's a very amazing inspiration and a very good friend. But one of the difficulties that I have is choosing what's the right path in the music that I want to do in Portugal. So my question is there a market for a Portuguese singer who's trying to sing Portuguese? No, sorry, to sing English in an R&B world that Portugal hasn't yet, I feel, embraced fully. So what's one of the advice for that we can break barriers or just to try to get to places that we haven't been able to? So that's my question.
Should I answer it? Okay. Hi, Malai. My mind goes 100 miles an hour hearing you say that. When I say my mind goes 100 miles an hour, it's because I can think of all the thoughts in my brain that I would look at as a solution to this. And it would not be whether or not if there's a market, right? I would be thinking about how can I prove that what I have, what my talent is, this sound of R&B that I have, which you do because your voice is amazing, I love you. And how can I continually be authentic to that and allow people to come to the understanding that this is what I bring in the music world. This is my space that I create for me, and those who come will come. And sometimes it may be a small audience at first. That's not the problem, but you might find out that somewhere in the UK is like, yo, there's this Portuguese girl singing R&B. Like, her voice is so amazing. I think we should bring her to this da-da-da-da-da, whatever the event is. There the story begins. That's how it will always be. If you're looking for a label to tell you what to do, then you have to go back to the part of who am I, what am I bringing, and am I confident in what I have to bring to the table of music? And you should be, because you're amazing, and people will get on board. Those who will get on board will get on board. So for the sake of sharing it with everyone, I would create R&B corner. Malai's Corner. Malai's Corner now. Malai's gonna, every Thursday, I'm gonna do an R&B song. I'm gonna connect with the people that tune into my live. I'm going to tell them to give me their most heartfelt things that they wanna say or do, and I'm gonna create a song, an R&B song, right way. Isn't this what we do? I host an event called Testify, where this is all I encourage, this pool of just being your most authentic self, creating in the moment, let synergy move on your behalf. So that's why I say my mind was going 100 miles an hour when you were talking, but at the same time, show up as Malai every time, and that is like the bottom line.
Amazing. Awesome. Yeah, really great. Any other questions? I feel like a robot at this point.
Hi, it's just a really quick question. Like, what decision, Giel, do you think made the most impact on your career? Like, it doesn't have to be one, of course, but like a couple of decisions that you think really made the difference overall. And, yeah.
I think the first thing that comes to mind is my choice to keep going. Resilience is not something you can buy, you know? It's something that you must experience. And we were talking about this too, Thiago, like just failing
And persistence,
better.
yes.
Just every time you don't get it right, it leaves you an opportunity to get it right the next time. And I think over the years, that's probably what has still given me the passion to keep going in this career. It's just my choice to get up and choose it every day. everything else just fell into place, I think.
Just to compliment Giel, because committing to a vision and sticking to it is a challenge, and it's a long-run challenge. It's something you have to really be committed to. So stick to your vision and to your authentic self, as we were saying many times during this conversation.
All right, well, we've heard so many good things today. It's actually pretty unbelievable that you can sit here and talk for an hour and get this masterclass in kind of how to establish yourself and what to pay attention to, what to ignore, what to filter out. And so I want to say, finally, just thank you a million for taking the time to do this. I hope you all found this as insightful and valuable as I did. It's been great to speak to the two of you. And yeah, I think we're going to wrap it up here. We've been in here for an hour and 15 minutes, and it's gone really fast. And so there's a ton of cool stuff that is left to do tonight. There's going to be 2 amazing concerts. There's going to be a DJ set. There's a nice outside area to hang out and talk. But most importantly, before we go, I'd like everybody to just give a round of applause to these two. They've been awesome.